All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are going to be talking about the spoilers, all the spoilers about Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and boy, oh boy, I cannot wait to talk about the mid-credit scene. But first, let's just go overall the general spoilers of the entire film. So you've been warned. If you are watching this now and you haven't seen Venom Let There Be Carnage, please turn off this video and go watch the film and come back and watch the spoiler review. And also, guys, if you enjoy this video and you like this content I'm posting, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. So let's just jump right into the spoilers for Venom Let There Be Carnage. So to basically start off, the film is essentially like the first in a way where Venom and Eddie Brock, of course, played by Tom Hardy, they obviously have a lot of banter back and forth with each other. And that is essentially what the humor is like in these movies for the first one and the second one. That is essentially where about the majority of all the humor comes from in Venom Let There Be Carnage and the first Venom. And so for the first, I would say 30 to 45 minutes of this film, there is a lot of banter back and forth between, Venom and Eddie and how they go about their everyday life, while also, it also goes into depth on the side story, of course, with Carnage and Cletus Cassidy and his love interest in Shriek. And really, we only see Carnage and Shriek a couple of times. I would say like a few times in the first 30 to 45 minutes. And the film actually starts out with those two and setting up their background. And I actually thought that was very smart. Setting up your villains to start out the movie is usually a good way to start a movie when you've got films like this, like a superhero movie or a comic book film. This is a good way to start your movie. I mean, looking back to the best example of this, The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight starts the movie with the Joker. And that is by far one of the best beginnings to a film we've ever had in any movie. And so them starting out here with Cletus Cassidy and Shriek, I keep blanking and forgetting her actual name. I know her by Shriek. And so it starts off with them at a younger age. And I thought the acting, while there was some dubbing over for the voice, I thought it was like, that didn't look all that great. And then the younger actress who played Shriek, not the greatest of acting, I have to be honest. And I mentioned that in my non-spoiler review. That's kind of where some of the acting kind of falters a little bit. And so the film starts off with them talking about how they were taken into this, like, asylum, I guess. It's kind of like an asylum in a way for, like, crazy people. And so they take Shriek away from Cletus Cassidy. She gets shot by a detective who we'll be talking about later in the film. And so she gets shot. She's taken to Ravencroft. And so she is hidden away from Cletus Cassidy. And that basically sets up the general beginning of the film. It cuts to the opening credits, or I guess the opening title crawl, Venom Let There Be Carnage, and now we go straight to Eddie and Venom, and basically from there on out, the movie basically is just following what Eddie is up to nowadays after the first Venom movie. So this movie essentially takes place right after the first Venom. I guess I technically wouldn't say right after the first Venom. Maybe I can't really tell if like more than a year has gone by since the first one. They don't explicitly say. And so we basically follow Eddie and Venom throughout the first 30 or so minutes and basically what they're doing with their everyday lives and how Eddie is essentially back in the storytelling business. He's working for a newspaper, I think, and he's basically writing articles for them. And his newest story is on Cletus Cassidy and Carnage. He was tasked with going to him to get information out of him and to write an article and stories about him for the newspaper. And so I thought that was an interesting way of, pushing the story forward to try and get to the point where we get to the ending of the film and basically everything that happens there. And so the movie deals with a lot of things. It deals with, Eddie and Brock, Eddie and Venom, basically just, being like the worst of friends because they hate each other and love each other at the same time throughout the entire movie, and it's funny. To me, it was really funny, the humor. I definitely did enjoy the comedy. Yes, not every joke landed. I feel like I have to reiterate that every time. Not every joke lands in the movie, but the majority of jokes do land for me. And me and my buddies, when we went and saw it, we had a good time. I mean, my one friend, he was practically laughing every 5 minutes in this movie. He was just having a blast. And so I think the first 30 to 45 minutes, well, I guess for some people it might be a little slower for people to take in, because nothing much really happens in the first 30 to 45 minutes. It's basically just a telling of what Eddie and Venom are doing. So they'll go to Cletus Cassidy for him to write some stories. He'll deal with his, ex now in Michelle Williams. And so, who's the actor, of course. The character's name is Anne. And he's basically dealing with that as well. It's there's a lot of things going on in the first 30 to 45 minutes that basically are crashing together with each other. And so I think that also maybe hinders to why I think a lot of people are not a fan of the fact that this movie's only an hour and a half long, and that maybe it could have used another 15 or so minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes. So, I understand where some people are coming from, but ultimately that is when we get to the point where we get to the scene. We get to one of the big scenes of the film, and that is finally when we get to the scene of when Cletus Cassidy is escaping from prison. And essentially, he had bitten Eddie Brock when he went to visit him for the last time in prison. He bit him, he took in his blood, and now he has a bit of the symbiote from Venom into his bloodstream, and that essentially turns him into Carnage. I'm not the biggest comic book person, but, before this movie had released, I had been listening to a lot of people talk about how, Carnage is basically one of the better, Venom universe characters. He's the most violent of them all. He does not care. He'll kill anything that gets in his way. And they basically do that here in this prison sequence when he escapes from prison. He's killing everybody. I mean, he kills any person that gets in his way. Although he doesn't really kill any prisoners, which is not strange, but I mean, maybe it's just because they don't hinder any, I guess they didn't really get in his way. It was more so the cops and the guards and also the warden, who, funny enough, was, I don't even know, he was lucky enough to be as alive for as long as he was. So that whole sequence just involves Carnage killing everybody, ripping them apart, and basically him escaping from prison. And that is essentially where the movie starts to pick up. And he goes to Ravencroft, which is now filled with a now older version of Shriek. She's now way older than she was in the beginning of the film. And he breaks her out. He breaks her out of prison. And they go on their little rampage around the town of San Diego, or not San Diego, San Francisco, because obviously that's where the movie takes place. And they both break out of prison, and they both go on their merry way doing crazy things because, of course, they are serial killers. And so they decide to, basically what they want to do is get back at everybody who did them wrong. And essentially, that is, for Cletus Cassidy, that is Tom Hardy. That's Tom Hardy, or Eddie Brock. For Shriek, that is the cop who shot her in the eye. And he also plays a huge role in the film because he's also basically bantering back and forth with Eddie Brock, as well as trying to figure out this case that he's on with him and Cletus Cassidy. And so he's involved in it as well. And she wants the cop to kill him. And then, of course, Carnage, he wants Venom. So that is essentially what the premise is of the last half of the movie, and basically where we get to by the end. And of course, that is what ends up happening. We get to the very end of the film, and essentially, our villains, they get what they want. They get the cop, they get Eddie Brock, and they get Venom. They get them all in this scene where, and it's so crazy, man. And this is why this movie, I think it's just so much dumb fun. It's so fun. It's entertaining. Cletus Cassidy and Shriek, Carnage and Shriek, they're about to get married in a church, and they want our main characters, are the cop, Eddie Brock, and Venom, to all witness it. And of course, they want Anne to witness it because, of course, she gets herself involved in this. And wow, I mean, this scene is crazy. It's all funny. It's entertaining for the most part. Yes, there were some parts of the action that were a little clunky, I would say. Not really all the best looking, considering it is in a darkly lit background. It happens during the night. It doesn't happen during the day. And honestly, if that's something that I could recommend in the future for the next Venom movie, because we will get a Venom 3, that's just going to happen. If I had to recommend whoever does the next movie, do a fight scene during the day, please. Stop making every fight scene in these movies during the night when you can't really see all that much. I mean, come on, man. Do some more lit backgrounds for some action scenes so that we can actually see what's going on. And that way you don't have to hide the CG as much, because that is also a way for people who work in CG to be able to hide some of the bad effects. And that's not to say that there were any bad effects in this film. It's just that that's like a cheat code for CGI, like in order to hide some effects that may look really bad. So just for the future, do more lit up scenes for action. Okay, that's just I feel like a piece of advice I should give. And so this action scene takes place for like the last 15-20 minutes of the movie. Venom is fighting Carnage. Shriek is getting herself involved, and in a way, because of course her shriek is what hinders the symbiotes, and that is essentially what tears apart the marriage between her and Cletus Cassidy, ultimately resulting in the events that take place to finish off the battle. And she gets in the way of that because her power hinders what the other two can do. And so Carnage, being as separate from Cletus Cassidy as he is, he basically turns on her and she gets her killed. And yes, she does die. She dies by a giant church bell that falls on top of her, which is violent in of itself. We don't actually see how it happens, but it falls on her and it basically implies that she's dead. And so by the end, the symbiote of Carnage is able to separate from Cletus Cassidy, and Venom eats it alive, which is funny. And then we get the best line of the film as he's holding up Cletus Cassidy, and he's just like, F this guy, and just rips his head off and just kills him. Oh my god, it was so funny. We were dying laughing in the theater when that moment happened. Oh my god, it was so funny. And so basically, the film kind of ends in a way where Eddie Brock and Venom, they know what they've done and they have to run off, because also it is implied, I'm assuming, that the other reason why they have to run off is because of the fact that the cop, he dies, I think. See, now this is the one part of the film that, if anybody in the comment section down below could tell me about it, I don't know much about the comics for these characters. I was told, and like I listened to a lot of people talk about it. The character of the cop apparently got some form of the power from I think Shriek, and is now turning into a character called Toxin. That's what I've heard. I don't know what that character is. I don't know anything about it. So that's essentially how the film ends. And it ends with I keep confusing them, with Eddie Brock and Venom on a beach. And it's funny, the most lit up scene where Venom is is on a beach and not in an action scene in both movies, which I found to be funny. So it ends with them on a beach, on the run, basically. And so that's when the film ends. And of course, to end off this spoiler review, we can't end it off without talking about that credit scene, the mid-credit scene, because there's only one. There isn't a post-credit scene. Oh my god. So, let me just say this right off the bat. I didn't get spoiled for this movie, thankfully, but with how people were talking about the movie beforehand, I had a feeling I knew exactly what it was going to be. And in the day and age that we're living in with the internet and social media, it really just sucks, because I really wish we lived in a society where people didn't feel it was necessary to openly talk about like potential leaks and like what could actually be happening in the film. I don't know why we are living in a society now where people feel it is okay and perfectly normal to just talk about those types of things. And again, I wasn't spoiled, but I had a feeling I knew exactly what was going to happen. I just feel like I knew. And so when the credit scene happened and this big giant explosion in the background, because Eddie and Venom are in some hotel or something, and outside some big giant, like hugely lit explosion, like weirdly looking explosion takes place. And all of a sudden it turns from nighttime to daytime, and the TV turns on and it's J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons on the TV from the Marvel MCU universe, at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, talking about how Peter Parker, our boy, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, got his face revealed to the public after Spider-Man Far From Home. I was losing my mind in the theater. Not like I was not like jittery and stuff. I just had my hands on my head like, wow, they're really doing this right now. I was, oh my God, I can't believe it. And of course, Venom comes out. He licks the TV and he's like, oh, that guy. I thought that was so cool. And then it ends with like a little joke of, Eddie being in somebody else's hotel room, which he doesn't realize because he practically got transferred to another universe that's not his own, which is crazy to think. And so now this essentially sets up what is going to happen for future films. What is going to happen with Venom 3? What's going to happen with Spider-Man No Way Home? Like, is Venom going to show up in No Way Home? I have no idea, because the thing is, if Venom does not show up in No Way Home, that means we have to wait many more years now for them to even remotely get in the same film. Oh God, it just feels so sucky thinking about that's probably the case. I'm hoping he shows up in No Way Home. I really, really do. Whether that's in like a post-credit scene or at like the very end of the film, because ultimately, I don't think Venom is showing up at any point in the actual film itself of No Way Home. I think the only way that Venom shows up in No Way Home is it's either at the end or in a post-credit scene. And so, I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. I'm very, very excited for the future, guys. I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home can't come soon enough. Obviously, we're getting it in December in 2 months. Oh boy, that cannot come soon enough. I am so excited for that movie. Guys, that's it. I got nothing more to say for the spoiler review. Of course, as I said in the non-spoiler review, I gave the film a 7 out of 10, and that grade still stands for me. I still give this movie a 7 out of 10. Again, I had a good time. I really did. Aside from what the critics want to say, I had a good time with this movie. My buddies had a good time with this movie, and that's really all that matters to me when it comes to a film like this. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I really appreciate you guys all tuning into this spoiler review. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you are new to this channel, again, and you like this content, please hit that like and subscribe. Comment down below what you thought of the film and what you thought about all the spoilers for the film, because now you can talk about spoilers. So go ahead, dive down in the comments, tell me what you think. And so that'll do it for me, guys. Appreciate you all tuning in, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.